Join me today as I dive into Joe Abercrombie's The Trouble with Peace and try to figure out, is it truly a masterpiece or just another fantasy novel? Thanks for joining me. I'm Jim, the father of Fantasy for the Ages, this father-son show where we talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things that we enjoy. And I hope you're going to enjoy this book review episode that I'm bringing to you. If you do, be sure to give me that like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Are you a fan of Joe Abercrombie's First Law books? If you're watching this, I imagine you are, and so am I. But can this eighth book in the series, The Trouble with Peace, possibly live up to my expectations? Because we all know it gets harder and harder to please the fans the farther you get into a series. Just ask Brandon Sanderson. It's only been a few weeks since Wind and Truth, Stormlight Archive, Book 5 has been out, and some fans are practically bringing the torches and ready to tar and feather him. It just hasn't lived up to the hype they were holding it for. I still thought it was pretty good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. But today, we're here to talk about The Trouble with Peace that Joe Abercrombie published back in 2020. I was really hoping it would be just as good as I wanted it to be. And I really wasn't disappointed. I've been having a heck of a lot of fun working my way through these First Law books. Read the original trilogy back in 2021, but now everything from Best Served Cold through this book, I have just gone bam, 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 hitting them all in pretty quick succession. It's been a super easy train to stay on, as Abercrombie has, for me, increased the quality with each and every book, and I thought Best Served Cold, where I jumped back into the series, was fantastic. So again, expectations were pretty high going into The Trouble with Peace. The opportunity for Abercrombie to fall short of what I was hoping for was really big. But he did not fall short. Instead, he delivered even more strongly than the previous book. It's close. I mean, it's almost like bam, bam with these first 2 books in the final trilogy. But I'm very satisfied, and I'm excited to see what this last book in the trilogy is going to bring, because I figure he's going to go out with a bang. I sure hope he does. Because that's the last book in the First Law series. At least for now. Abercrombie says he might come back, but that was the completion of his arc. I haven't read that last book yet. I'm about to start it. I'll have a review for you on that one fairly soon. But let's talk about The Trouble with Peace. Again, of course, it's grim dark fantasy for its genre. The setting is various locations around the circle of the world. This planet, this place that Abercrombie has established and developed over the course of now 8 books. He takes full advantage of this diverse land that he's made for us. Parts of this book, I mean, we're up in the north again, as well as the Protectorate of England in various locations. We spend time back in Adua, kind of the center of the world, and other locations in Midderland, including a return to that industrial city we met in the last book, Valbeck. We get back to Sapani and the continent of Styria in this one, which we first experienced firsthand back in Best Served Cold. Time-wise, the book takes place just a little while after the conclusion of the last book. Right near the end of that last book, King Jazal died, and all hail King Orso. So we've had enough time take place that King Orso has kind of settled into his role, and definitely long enough to tick a lot of people off and have them giving him a very poor approval rating in some circles. What's the book about? Again, spoiler light. I won't ruin it for you if you haven't read it yet, but you'll totally know what I'm talking about if you have. Primarily, this is the story of how dissatisfied and power-hungry lords of the Union, the ones who are outside of the closed council for the most part, how they continue to manipulate the naive and somewhat vain Leo Danbrock, who's currently now the governor of England, so a very prestigious position and seen as a hero of the Union, but they work him to the point where he genuinely believes it is his duty to lead a rebellion against the leadership of the Union. Not to overthrow the king, mind you. He's convinced himself that the king's fine. It's that closed council that's corrupt, the ones who truly hold the power and the purse strings of the Union, and they need to be dragged down. Now, King Orso, he's been genuinely working to be a good ruler. Not entirely turning over a new leaf, but taking his responsibilities seriously and trying to do the right thing. This has not pleased those working in the shadows to try to change things and bring down the closed council. And those disenchanted lords are actually a big part of why King Orso has such a low approval rating. Not that they really do polls. They've been sabotaging his efforts, working in the shadows and behind the scenes to make everything that he tries to do not work out very well, and he keeps having egg on his face. It doesn't seem to matter what he tries to do, they work to see that it's screwed up. If you're hearing me here, we've got these lords in the background of the Open Council who are honestly playing both Leo and Orso. And it's going to lead to a genuine confrontation between the two at some point in this book. There are some complicating factors here that make the story quite interesting and even add into the grimdark elements. The biggest of those is Savine Danglachta, who, at the end of the last book, learned that she's actually the half-sister of Orso, and so while she was excited he asked her to marry her, she can't. And she was told she can't tell him why either. And in her frustration, she went and had a mad sexual fling with Leo Danbrock. Well, that one fling was quite the thing, because she's pregnant now. And she's getting to the point where it's going to be kind of hard to hide it anymore. Well, her mom and Leo's mom work things out and decide the two of them should be married. And they are. That seems to be a pretty good thing, actually. It's definitely good for Leo to have Savine there bringing all of her entrepreneurial talent, her intelligence, her ability to do whatever it takes to get the job done and to achieve your goals, working for him. That really helps up there in England. The problem is, now that they're married, Savine becomes aware that Leo's already enmeshed in this plot, these shady actions towards perhaps now actually moving forward in revolt to try to bring down the closed council, where her dad, Sandanglachta, is the most hated of all, the arch-elector of the Inquisition, the one who's really the power behind the power, because, well, Baez made him that way, first of the Magi. This is kind of a conflict of interest for Savine. She's going to have to figure out what to do here, and we get to see that happen. Additionally, if Leo is going to do this, Savine needs to make sure he wins, because things will be bad for her, bad for their child otherwise. So one of the things that gets decided is we got to get some more help, and who better than the Northmen? Because if you remember from the last book, Leo spared the life of Stour Nightfall when they faced off in the circle. So Stour, who is now king of the North, having killed his uncle at the end of the last book, he owes a debt to Leo, and Leo is basically going to call it in. Say, hey, I want you and your army to come with. But it's not just all to help me. I mean, you will come out of this good too. I will see to it in some way that you'll have prestige. They'll be singing your songs of your glory, and he'll end up getting promised more. So, okay, the Northmen come with, but he also is going to go to his childhood friend, Ricca, who now is in charge of Ufrith and basically the people of the North who live in the Protectorate of England. Because early in this book, her father's going to pass away of old age. He just fades away, and she ends up in charge. Will she come along with, especially if he's partnering with Stour Nightfall, because she does not like him at all, and she's got that long eye. She can see the future. Will that lead her to join, or will that lead her a different direction? Now, you're going to have to read the book to find out, but it adds interesting elements to the story for sure. Another fascinating additional element to the story is the way the increasing innovation and industrialization is woven into the plot, and how Baez continues to flex his muscle and influence, not so much through magic, but through finance. The banking interest he has in Valentin Bulk, really using debt to push what he wants, funding things he wants to see happen, calling debts due when he wants somebody ruined and out of the way. And we don't actually see Baez in this story. He works through his agent, Yoru Sofor, an interesting kind of guy who we find out is actually more interesting than we knew over the course of this book. Once again, with the conclusion of this book, the landscape of the circle of the world changes, especially in the Union and the North. Power has shifted, mysteries have been revealed, and we have a big piece set up right at the end to lead us into that final book and this big resolution that's coming. And I'm excited to read The Wisdom of Crowds. So, the plot this time. How deep is it? How complex is it? Well, Abercrombie makes plot choices in this novel that are just delightful, bringing people into circumstances that they couldn't possibly have foreseen, and then they act as best they can based on their abilities and their resources. Yet, despite what they do, the outcomes are so often completely out of their control, seemingly left to random chance. If there is something that could possibly go wrong, it probably will, because this is a grimdark fantasy novel, and at the worst possible time. And yet, for some, for one in particular, what shouldn't work somehow does, again and again, but not through some deus ex machina or Mary Sue principle, through logical events and decisions that are made, sometimes off page, but come to be known by us, and we're like, well, of course, then that makes sense. We get it. I found this narrative to be highly enjoyable to consume, with the outcome hard to predict, actually. I love it when I can't totally see everything coming. There were some twists that didn't totally shock me, but there were others that came completely out of left field. Again, they're logical, they're reasonable, they're not ridiculous, but they surprised me, and that was totally satisfying for me as a reader. Abercrombie has designed quite the complex web between people and circumstances here in this book, and the full ramifications of what he's woven are still to be revealed in the final book of the trilogy. I am eager to find out. Definite 5 stars for plot depth. I discerned no weaknesses or significant flaws with this storyline at all. Let's talk about the characters. Abercrombie's characters remain complex and entertaining, and I love seeing how they navigate the circumstances in which they find themselves. You feel frustrated with Leo. How can he be so stupid? While valuing his willingness to stand up for what he believes is right. Now, that's always a sign. Someone who does that in a grimdark novel, it's going to suck for him. But you still, go Leo to a degree. But can't you see you're being played? You also can't help but be impressed still with the Lady Savine, while also disgusted a bit with the steps she's willing to take to achieve her goals. And then there's the secondary characters, Gunnar Broad and Inquisitor Vic Dan Teufel. Fully fleshed out character arcs. They might be secondary, but they're given first-rate treatment by Abercrombie. I really appreciate that. My favorite character to follow in this book, though, actually, is King Orso, which is a bit surprising to me. He started out this trilogy as a pampered waste of air, consuming all his time with drink and debauchery. And at the core, that's still who he is. He is no paragon of virtue, but he's leaning into being the best king he can be while gaining a new appreciation for his father, who he now regrets he never gave the time to that he should have. He's learning that despite his efforts, things are complicated, and being a good king doesn't always mean he's going to get good results, but he keeps trying. King Orso wants to be a good king, not for the acclaim it will give him. He just actually feels the responsibility and wants to be there for his people. I can't help but go, yay, Orso, you're coming around. I think he's surprising some of the other people in the story around him, looking at him going, we didn't expect this out of you. You're actually more capable than we realized. There's a particular great scene where that's on display at Cardati's House of Leisure. That, yeah, he really shines. Of course, he's in a whorehouse again. But now let me give a shout out once again to Call Shivers, the Northman, who continues to be a through point for all of these novels. I'd have to go and double check this, but I believe he is the only character to have appeared in all 8 of the First Law novels to this point. And okay, slight spoiler, I see no reason why he can't be in book 9. It's a small spoiler. I just told you he doesn't die, okay? But I'm looking forward to, seeing, okay, what role does he play? Because while he's clearly a secondary character in this novel, he still has involvement that's pivotal, particularly in the action that takes place in Ufrith shortly after the passing of the Dogman. That was a heck of a scene. I didn't even talk about Rika. She's involved in that scene. Rika's amazing in this book. What it comes down to, again, though, is Abercrombie's work with characters is exceptional. 5-star level workmanship, once again. Now let's talk about writing style. I may come off a bit like a broken record here, but Abercrombie's writing approach is totally entertaining and captivating to me. His gritty realism puts you right into the scenes, whether they be a meeting of the closed council, a duel within the circle up north, or a secret meeting at Cardati's House of Leisure. His use of language and dark humor means every conversation is laced with interest and deep meaning. The way he lays out the complications of political intrigue, his portrayal of battle, and how the winners and the losers are often so subject to the whim of chance. It's just all done fantastically, the way he writes these things. And I love how Abercrombie can make broad statements about society, war, politics, family, and more without ever going on in an expositional diatribe. He never comes off as preachy. And yes, this is a direct comparison to Brandon Sanderson and Winded Truth, which I also just finished and didn't strike a good note in this regard. Abercrombie shines in how he can do this. Every statement he wants to make comes across just through the natural events and conversations of the narrative. But come on, we know they're not natural. He wrote them. He made them up. And yet, with such skill that you get the points. 5-star rating is, again, so very well earned in this category. So there are a number of themes that Abercrombie has woven in here. Most of these aren't new themes just to this book, but here's the ones I think really are most highlighted and emphasized in this particular narrative. One would be the conflict between progress and tradition. Whether we're talking the progress of technology and industrialization, or the shift to newer forms of society, culture, and governance, Abercrombie well illustrates that tension between those eager for change, let's become better, and those that want to cling to the past, want to hold to the way things have always been done. Then there's the theme of power and betrayal. Those who want power too often will do anything to get it, and once they have it, to hold it. And they don't seem to care who they're going to have to sacrifice to do it. Their closest friends, their allies, even their own family members. Then there's the challenge of self-transformation. This is the final theme that I think really shines in this one. Abercrombie is illustrating through the narrative the importance of seeking to grow and adapt based upon the changing times. Those who learn how to adjust to circumstances, even having to learn new trades or skills, how to function in new positions, these are the ones that are going to thrive, as opposed to those who just want to hold to what they know and expect the world to cater to them, because it won't. Not even when it's not grimdark. Warnings for this book? Well, again, there's plenty of fighting and death in here, including dismemberments. It's not for the squeamish. If betrayal sets you off, stay away from this book. Otherwise, it's just regular grimdark. It wasn't totally horrific. I enjoyed it. But, if you need warnings about this book, how did you make it through the previous 7? My final rating for this book, of course, 5 out of 5 stars. I completely enjoyed this story. If you can't tell that after listening to this review, you need to quit double tasking and pay more attention when I'm talking. I will rank it just ahead of the previous novel, but they're really neck and neck. There are some aspects of this one that I thought just advanced the narrative and the character growth to a degree that it edges out the one before it. But they're both really close. Both are outstanding. But I'm hoping this last book really takes it up to a brand new final level. Okay, that's what I have for you today. Have you read this book already and have comments you can share with me, your opinion of it? Anything you think I got wrong or something you really liked that I didn't say anything about while keeping it spoiler light, drop it in the comments. I love to hear from you guys, and I will always respond. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.